What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, Sugar Ray. And G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we take a look back at the first time comedians took the stage with this week's guest, Chipp Jones. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, I'm G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and host of Done Way Past Funny. This is part 3 of our 3-part interview with the very talented Chipp Jones. Here we go. Chipp Jones. Okay, why 2 P's in Chipp?
My mom spelled it that way. Because, Chipp is actually my nickname.
Okay.
My government name, as they say, is Humphrey.
Okay.
I'm Humphrey Jones Jr., and my dad is from the Turks and Caicos Islands in the British West Indies. And
okay.
So under the English custom, if you're a junior, your nickname is Chipp.
And
if you're the third, then you're Trip or Trey. And so as a young kid, I was always called Chipper.
Right.
And then as I got older, they cut it down to Chipp, but my mom left it as 2 P's to make it different. And so that's the way it's always been.
It's funny, because of the 2 P's, my mind was thinking that at some point you were a chipper.
Yeah, early on, but it didn't last long. It was they say my first nickname was Dustbuster or Duster, because they said as a little kid I was always getting away from people and crawling around behind furniture and stuff like that, and invariably when they finally got to me, I was just covered in dust. It's like so my dad would always call me Duster. What's Duster up to? So
part Chipp with 2 P's Jones in New York, part 3.
Sex is a sore subject to married men. You married, sir? No? So you're having a lot of sex. Bastard. I grew up in the Mid-South in Memphis. So there's a tradition when a couple's married, they give them an ornamental bowl, a big jar or something, and a couple bags of gumdrops or hard candy. And that first newlywed year, you're supposed to put a piece of candy in every time you make love. And then after the newlywed year, you're supposed to take a piece of candy out after you make love. But the way it goes is that you will never empty the bowl. It's true. After 17 years, I was staring at a half-full bowl. So I decided that I would start taking candy out when I made love to myself. I not only emptied that bowl, but I refilled it twice this way. And that's my life. You guys are laughing too hard at myself. I have a teenage son, and the thing I realize is that kids today are much richer than when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I was given $4.50 every day for lunch for school, so my net worth was $4.50. My son goes to school with an iPod. He goes to school with a cell phone and a power book. This dude is worth $1,200 now counting shoes. And it really struck home to me because my wife called and said, you haven't deposited any of your checks and we've got some automatic deductions coming up. So, well, I'm not going to get to the bank. That's okay, I'll just transfer some money from our son's account. What? This guy's now giving me a bridge loan. It was cool, he only charged me 4%, but I heard the booze about Michael Jackson, and maybe it's too soon humor. It's not. Because I've been thinking about Michael Jackson, I mean, this is the man who did Thriller. Thriller, guys. 9 tracks, 7 of them went to #1. I mean, no one else could possibly do this. no one else could have possibly done this in the past, except for maybe one guy. But the 12 apostles he hung out with didn't play instruments. But you hear this thing about plastic surgery with him, so he was almost 99% plastic. And there's talk about cremating him and turning him into Legos. You know this is where this is going. But I think that's kind of a terrible thing, because in death, he will still be a choking hazard to little boys. I think I'm going to end right there, because I don't think I can go any further. I want to thank you for your attention. You're probably saving me about 200 hours of therapy this week.
Choking hazard to little boys.
Yeah, like I said, that was like the perfect joke that gave you the three stratosphere of the audience. People laughed immediately, people that were shocked, people that were shocked and then laughed, you know, and then they started to cry.
Yes.
So it's like, and even David Tell said something after it. He's like, oh, I thought there was going to be that internet joke, you know, where they say they turn him into Legos and now kids can play with him. But he goes, when he did that ending, he said, I was laughing. I couldn't believe that. That was so dark.
Now, when 13 years, did you used to, in the beginning or even now, did you have a routine, or was there anything you were superstitious about before going on stage?
No, you know what I did starting out, because part of what my mentor did at the Improv, you know, he was very much about that you're gonna be building your comedy going forward. So what I would do is I would have something like a focus. So my first focuses would be stuff like mic handling. Okay, I am going to be a handheld mic guy, so when I hit the stage, I am focused on making sure taking the mic and moving the mic stand behind me, moving it away, moving it to the side of the stage. A lot of people, they're handheld, but they forget and they leave the mic stand in front of them, and then they're playing dodgeball with with the mic stand.
Yes.
So those are things, you know, enunciation, you know, what's your tempo? Those. So I would have things that I would focus on rather than having superstitions.
Okay. So like in the beginning, so if you were, let's say, focusing on so it's like with you, it's like one thing at a time. Like maybe you had like a checklist. Like eventually,
yeah, like I had a list of things
stand.
that I need to master, and I said, okay, this is what I'm working on this week. Every time I hit the stage, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this routine until it becomes rote. You know, so now when I come up, I automatically do those things, moving the mic stand. You know, dividing the audience into threes and making sure to look, because you know, so this I'm sort of moving back and forth, but I'm not really making direct eye contact out into the audience. I focus on like the guy up front and stuff.
Right.
But now I know that if you sort of look out into imaginary space,
yes,
3 times or 4 times of the audience, everyone gets the impression that you're making eye contact with them, even though a lot of times, like you know, if you're doing like a place like I've done the Magic Box up in New Jersey in the board, you can't see. I mean, it's 900 people in the room. You can't see. It's like, but
right.
You can give them the impression that you're making eye contact with.
Yeah, that's like I'll look out into the audience as if I can see them, and I'll even make expressions like I can see them. You know,
exactly.
But I learned to do that because when I was in Florida, when I first started in Florida, I could only hit like a mic a week, and that was because a lot of places only had like one open mic a month, and I was fortunate to be like I don't know if it was a conspiracy. I mean, I don't know if they were cooperating. Like one says, we're going to do one a month, and it's going to be on the first Monday, and the other one goes like, well, we're going to do like the second Monday, and we're going to do the third Monday, and we'll do the fourth, whatever week it was, So I could hit like one a week, but it was at a different place each time, and they were all an hour.
Where in Florida?
They were all an hour. I was in Venice, Florida, just south of Saratoga.
Okay.
So everything was like an hour to 90 minutes away.
My dad's in Miami.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, so every open mic was like an hour to 90 minutes away. What I was gonna say, what Dade County in Miami, the city, or just in Dade County?
He's in Dade, just outside of Miami, and then my in-laws used to live in Dunedin, right outside of Tampa. So I've done comedy in Tampa and St. Pete and in Miami. But
that's it. Everything was so far away from me down there that I used to do more. I used to just record my sets at home. I used to practice at home in front of the video camera, and my focus was trying to make the camera laugh, which obviously can't happen. But I'd watch the video. And just to pick apart what I did wrong, because they didn't have a mic stand at home, so I'd move the broom handle, and I'd hold the spoon, and I'd do the motions. And if I do this routine, how am I going to hold the mic and make this gesture? So I work all those mechanics out. And my superstition was I'd show up at wherever I'm going to perform, I'd show up like a half an hour early, so I can imagine my set on that stage. So if I have to move something, it's like, wait a minute, I need a chair. Or wait a second, this stage isn't deep enough for me to do that set that way. I can't walk the steps with that, but all my little superstitions, like having to drink a Red Bull before I perform, I became diabetic. So no, I can't drink a Red Bull before I perform, or just most of the stuff. Or if you show up late, if something happens and I can't get there half an hour early, that ruins everything for me. So my superstitions went away like little by little, but by accident. Not that I outgrew them. I didn't outgrow any of my superstitions. Like I said, I became diabetic, or
Right. Yeah. One of my close comedy partners, we did comedy up and down the Eastern Seaboard together. I called him Danny Deuce because he always wanted to do a number 2 before the show. So that was his ritual. I had to do a number 2 before the show. So, but I didn't have any real superstitions. I mean, and what you're talking about in Florida, I think that's one of the advantages of Washington, and why so many people have broken out of DC is that it's basically a little town with big town amenities. So you can find, comedy shows every night of the week. And so, I can remember 3 or 4 open mics in a night. You could get a lot of stage time in DC.
Now, when I was in Florida, I was like a big fish in a little pond, because even though I had just started doing comedy, when I walk into a mic, they would say, "Yes, GD, can you do 12 minutes tonight?" Because most of the open mics weren't just all comedians. They were always mixed, like comedians and musicians, storytellers. Right. So when I walk in, I might be the only comedian in that open mic, and they'd say, "Well, can you do 12 minutes?" So I got spoiled with thinking that open mics as a comedian, you got to do 12 minutes. And so when we moved from Florida to Maryland, and I go to do an open mic, and I said, like, so I asked about my 12 minutes. Yeah, and they're like, 12 minutes? Who the fuck do you think you are? No, nobody gets 12 minutes. The headliner gets 8, no, you'll get 6 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. And I was devastated. I was like, I don't understand. And the other thing about, like I said, in Florida, I didn't have to try hard. I was just, me showing up was like enough. I mean, I wanted to be funny and I wanted to be good. Like I said, I had a thing I wanted to do. And when my wife says we're moving back to Maryland, I said, I might as well give up comedy. There's no way I'm going to be good enough for Maryland. There's too many comedians up there. I'll never stand out. It's like you won't be able to swing a dead cat without hitting a comedian. That's just, how am I supposed to stand out up there? I'm old. It's a young person's game. It takes 10 years to get discovered. By the time I get discovered, I'll be in a wheelchair. Nobody's going to want to hire me in a wheelchair. Stages aren't wheelchair accessible. So I was ready to give up comedy when we moved back to Maryland. But we didn't. By that time, I'd invested. Yeah. But it made me a better comic being around.
Oh, definitely.
Being around like 4,000 comics. It made me a better comic.
And also the audience here is so diverse. It is because it's the capital. I mean, you get people from all over the world. I mean, I go into do shows and it's like you've got 20 people in there that only speak Italian. And you've got to figure out what's the that you're going to do that they can kind of understand, or the act out stage that are going to be funny to them. And I think that's why DC has been such houses, because you can get a lot of time and you can get in front of so many different people. I mean, you go up into even in New York, it's New York is probably 13 times the size of population of DC, but you still have comics up there that are doing what I call comedy. They're talking about the smelly guy on the subway. It's like
masturbating guy on the train.
Really, that doesn't really translate to people in Omaha. So but here I think we're pushed to write and to think more globally and a bigger audience. And the other thing that's really weird about DC is DC audiences are not really pun audiences. New York and Miami, Pennsylvania like puns, but DC people for some reason, unless they, a show that's specifically designed for puns, they really don't like them. I don't know why that is. They think it's kind of lazy or whatever, but I don't know.
Well, a good pun should be appreciated, and if it's a good pun, should be appreciated.
I think they really are the modern audience where they're looking for. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that jokes don't really work either. People are looking for humor that's connected to medium, that really you're unfolding yourself to them, and that's why when I tell young comedians, is don't write jokes, write about your life, write what you know. I mean, it's like a novel, and I think audiences pick up earnestness, and that's what makes it funny, is that it's funny because it's the sort of thing,
I think that's one of the things
like.
But with a lot of the younger comedians, when they tell their quote life stories, they haven't had, to be honest, a life, story, so to speak. And even still, they're still living it. So they're still too close to it to actually, a lot of times you can see the therapy going on stage. So you can see them working through the issue.
To them, they can write about how they feel about stuff, so that it comes from an honest place. But when you're just writing, joke, that we lost that, I think, in the 70s. We made that transition from, the comedians of the Borscht Belt in the 50s and 60s, and went into sort of the 70s with Pryor and Carlin and those guys were actually talking about how they felt or their real lives, and I think that's what audiences are picking up. I mean, before that, people just told jokes. In fact, they were tell comedians. I said, who's on first, which we consider the quintessential joke of Abbott and Costello.
Right.
Is actually a variation on that was done in a Borscht Belt for 30 years before then. In fact, there were comedians that were upset because now these guys are doing it on television and radio, and so now do it anymore because it's something that's stolen. But my favorite story is a story about God, what's his name? Milton Berle. They asked Milton Berle about young comedians. It's like around in the mid 50s, and he's like, "Oh, the young comedians are doing really funny stuff." He goes, "I was out the other night seeing some young comedians. I said their jokes were so funny. I dropped my pencil when I was writing them down." And that was the thing at the time. It was, a lot of people were saying the same. Just like when I look at the albums my parents had, a song like Little Green Apples, 30 people
Right.
did a song, and now, if somebody does a cover, it's like a huge thing, and they've got to do some kind of alteration to it or something. But, back in the day, people were used to having material retreaded, songs that were retreaded, or jokes that were told by different comedians, the same jokes,
I think that, well, the best compliment I'd ever had was because you're talking about the diversity in DC. There was a teacher in Israel who was using my material to teach English as a second language class to Arab. Well, he was in Israel, but he was teaching Arabic, and teaching Arabic students how to speak English. And he was using he was using my material to teach them how not to fuck up the English language because the way I would misdirect and stuff like that. But he sent me an email. Every time I tell a story, I say letter, but it wasn't a letter, it was an email. And in the email, they told me that, he said, even though we don't know about American football, your joke was very funny to us. So to me, that's a compliment, because like, you don't know, they don't know football, but I made it funny to them. No, but they can say anything. But also, anything they want to know.
Right. I also say that the comedians, if you write stuff that's from your life or from your take stuff, I mean, it's personal to you. It makes it hard for other people to steal too.
Yes.
If you write jokes, anybody can do it. But Arabic,
that was some. Yeah.
My son went to Grinnell, and I remember his freshman year, he was flying back, Christmas, I think it was. And he called and he said, my driver's license is expired, so I don't have an ID for the plane. Well, how long is it? He goes, it's about a month expired. I said, well, you could travel on it because it's valid as an ID for 90 days. You just can't drive on it. I said, but you have to take it with you. I mean, you got to show up. He didn't listen to me. He took his school ID. And so he got stopped by TSA, and they're asking him, well, what are you? He's like, well, I'm a student at Grinnell, and my driver's license expired. And they said, well, we can see. He goes, well, I didn't bring it because it was expired. And they told him basically the same thing I told him. He goes, well, if you're a student, then show me some homework. And so he reaches in his bag and he pulls out and shows this guy's homework. And then TSA starts calling into his microphone for back, some code, and all these officers come over and they're like, well, what is this? And he goes, what do you mean? What kind of homework is this? And he looks down and he goes, oh, that's my Arabic homework. My son is biracial, so he's what I call the beige boyfriend. He could be Middle Eastern or Mexican or anything. So I said, son, you can't give a TSA guy Arabic homework. Give him math or English something, but Arabic homework, no. So they're like, we don't know if we should let you on the plane.
There was a joke I did back in 2016. Was the news story was the guy was pulled off. They stopped the airplane, or pulled him off the airplane, had him detained because the woman sitting next to him said that he was writing in a foreign language.
Oh, that's the
and it was algebra.
Guy.
Yes, he was writing algebra.
He was doing differential equations. He was an Italian economist. Yeah.
Yes,
I
remember that. Yes, that was.
I remember that. Yeah.
And
because they were saying like if they had just Googled him, they would have seen. I mean, this guy was a world-renowned economist.
Yes.
It's like.
Yeah. That was, and I've. My punchline was about algebra or something like that. The way
algebra.
Yeah.
The cousin of algebra.
Yes. So, well, look,
I thought that was interesting.
Go ahead.
The interesting thing of that story is that they reboarded the plane and they took off with everybody except the woman. So I don't know if she got in trouble or she decided not to fly. I don't know.
I can't be flying with anybody doing math next to me.
That's right.
That's voodoo.
I can't have anybody solving for y next to me. That's ridiculous.
Matt, look, I appreciate you doing this for me and with me.
My pleasure, man.
So let the people know how they can stalk you, or if they want to know.
They can read me on my social media. Chipp, CHIPP, and the letter J on Facebook and Twitter, and then Chipp, CHIPP, Jones, Jones, on Instagram, or my Hangouts. And then you can get my information on where I'm going to be from those places. You can hear me weekly on Fridays at 11 on WPFW 89.3 FM in the DMV, or WPFWFM.org anywhere in the world. And then I also do an internet radio show Saturdays from 1 to 3 on nextlevelradio.com, NLGradio.com, with comedians Tracy Jackson and Carlton Herndon. So check me out, and hopefully I'll see you at a show.
Cool. Everybody, this has been Done Way Past Funny with myself, GD Fenderson, certified forensic humorist at large, but I'm losing weight. And thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.